Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main window. 3 years into their deep space mission, his crew had found nothing but empty planets and dead rocks. Earth seemed very far away. "Captain," called Lisa Martinez from her science station. "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her console. Lisa was the best scientist on the ship, maybe the best Earth had ever sent into space. If she said something was strange, he listened. "What do you have?" he asked. "It's a signal, sir, but it's not like anything we've seen before. The pattern is too complex to be natural, but too organized to be random." Ryan Cooper looked up from the engineering station. "Could be a malfunction in our equipment." "I checked that first," Lisa said. "This is real, and it's coming from the direction of the Galactic Center." Jake felt his heart beat faster. After years of searching, this could be it. First contact with alien life. "Helen, get up here," he called to the communications officer. Helen Brooks arrived on the bridge within minutes. She had studied every human language and dozens of theoretical alien communication methods. If anyone could make sense of an alien message, it was her. "Let me hear it," Helen said, putting on her headset. The bridge fell silent as Helen listened. Her face changed from confusion to surprise to something that looked like worry. "Well," Jake asked, "it's definitely artificial. And Captain, I think it's meant for us." "What do you mean?" Helen pulled up the translation on her screen. "The signal contains mathematical sequences that any space-traveling race would understand. But more than that, it has references to our solar system, our planet. It knows about Earth." Sam Rodriguez, the tactical officer, stepped forward. "How is that possible? We've never made contact with anyone." "I don't know," Helen said. "But there's more. The message is an invitation, or maybe a summons. They want us to come to a place called Nexus Prime." Jake read the translation over Helen's shoulder. The message was polite but firm. Humanity had been discovered and was required to present themselves for evaluation. The coordinates were included. "How far?" Jake asked Ryan. Ryan ran the numbers. "About 6 weeks at maximum speed." "Sir?" "Sir," Sam said, "this could be a trap. We don't know anything about whoever sent this." Jake looked around at his team. These were Earth's best people. Lisa with her brilliant mind, Ryan with his engineering genius, Helen with her gift for understanding others, Sam with his tactical skills. If humanity was going to meet aliens for the first time, he couldn't ask for a better crew. "We came out here to find life," Jake said. "We found it. Now we have to decide what to do about it." "The message says the invitation is not optional," Helen added. "They make it clear that refusing is not an option." Lisa studied her sensors again. "Captain, I'm detecting more signals now. Dozens of them, all heading toward the same coordinates. I think we're not the only ones who got this invitation." Jake made his decision. "Set course for Nexus Prime, maximum speed." The journey took exactly 6 weeks. During that time, the crew prepared for every possibility they could think of. They studied the alien mathematics in the message, trying to understand the minds that created it. They ran through first contact protocols until everyone could do them in their sleep. But nothing prepared them for what they found when they arrived. Nexus Prime was massive. The space station was the size of a small moon, made of materials that gleamed like crystal and metal mixed together. Ships of every shape and size surrounded it, some so strange that Jake couldn't figure out which end was the front. "My God," Lisa whispered. "Look at the diversity. There must be ships from dozens of different species here." A new signal came through, this time with perfect English. "UES Horizon, you are cleared for docking bay 47. Follow the guide lights." Jake guided his ship through the maze of alien vessels. Some looked like they were grown rather than built. Others seemed to be made of pure energy held in force fields. The Horizon, with its simple metal hull and chemical rockets, looked primitive by comparison. The docking bay was enormous. As they landed, Jake saw other ships that looked more familiar. Not human, but built with similar ideas about how ships should work. "Captain," Sam said, I'm reading life signs on the station, lots of them, at least 12 different biological signatures. The airlock opened, and Jake led his team outside. The air was breathable, though it tasted slightly metallic. The gravity felt normal. They were met by three beings that Jake's mind struggled to understand. The first looked almost human, but with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. The second was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. The third was hardest to look at directly. It seemed to shift and change as if it was made of controlled energy. The blue-skinned being stepped forward. "Welcome to Nexus Prime. I am Veltar of the Zephyrians. We represent the Galactic Consortium." Jake found his voice. "I'm Captain Jake Harrison of Earth. This is my crew." "Yes, we know who you are," Veltar said. There was something in his tone that Jake didn't like. It wasn't hostile, but it wasn't friendly either. It was the way someone might talk to a child or a pet. "You have been brought here for evaluation," the crystal being said in a voice like wind chimes, "to determine if your species is worthy of joining galactic civilization." "And if we're not?" Helen asked. Veltar smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. "Then you will be given a different role to play in our society. Come, let us show you to your quarters. Tomorrow, your trials begin." As they walked through the station, Jake noticed something that made his skin crawl. Along the walls were windows, and behind those windows were living spaces. In those spaces were beings from different worlds, going about their daily lives while crowds of aliens watched them like animals in a zoo. "What are those?" Lisa asked. "Entertainment," Veltar said casually. "Species that were not quite ready for full membership. They live comfortable lives here, and visitors enjoy observing their unique cultures." Jake felt sick. These weren't citizens or guests. They were exhibits. "How many species have passed your trials?" he asked. Veltar's smile grew wider. "In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, Captain Harrison, not one species has passed all three trials. But please do not let that discourage you. I'm sure your people will make excellent entertainment." Jake woke up in what could only be called a cage. The room was comfortable enough with a bed, desk, and bathroom, but the front wall was clear glass. Outside, aliens walked by and stared at him like he was an animal in a zoo. A young alien child pressed its face against the glass and made excited noises. Its parent pulled it away, speaking in a language that sounded like music. Jake felt angry and embarrassed at the same time. The door opened and Veltar entered. "Good morning, Captain. I trust you slept well." "Is this how you treat all your guests?" Jake asked. "Only the ones being evaluated," Veltar said with that same cold smile. "Your crew is in similar quarters nearby. Are you ready for your first trial?" Jake had no choice but to follow. They walked through long corridors filled with more viewing windows. Behind each one was a different species, living their lives while aliens watched. Some seemed happy enough, but others looked sad and lost. "How long have they been here?" Jake asked. "Oh, some for centuries. Time moves differently when you don't have to worry about the future. We take very good care of our exhibits." They reached a large room where his crew was waiting. Lisa looked angry. Ryan seemed fascinated by the alien technology around them. Helen appeared thoughtful, and Sam was clearly planning something violent. "The first trial tests your technological advancement," announced the crystal being from yesterday. "You will repair this quantum generator using the tools and materials provided." The device in the center of the room was the size of a car and looked like it had been hit by an explosion. Parts were scattered everywhere, and Jake couldn't even tell what most of them were supposed to do. "You have 6 hours," Veltar said. "Previous species have required 12 to 15 hours for this task. We don't expect you to finish in time, but we will evaluate your methods." Ryan stepped forward and examined the broken machine. His face lit up with excitement. "This is amazing. I've never seen technology like this." "That's the point," the crystal being said. "Species that rely too heavily on familiar technology cannot adapt to galactic standards." Ryan started picking up pieces and studying them. "Captain, this isn't as impossible as it looks." These parts work on principles I recognize, just applied in ways we haven't thought of. Lisa joined him, using her scanner to analyze the alien materials. The molecular structure is fascinating. It's like they've found a way to make matter behave in multiple quantum states at once. Can you fix it? Jake asked. Maybe, Ryan said. But not the way they expect us to. Ryan began working with an energy that Jake had seen before. It was the same look he got when solving impossible engineering problems back on Earth. Instead of trying to understand every piece of alien technology, he focused on what each part was supposed to do. Lisa, I need you to tell me what this crystal does when I apply power to it, Ryan said, holding up a glowing component. It appears to create a stable quantum field, Lisa replied after scanning it. Good, and this metal rod? It channels the field and focuses it. Ryan started connecting pieces, but not in the way the original design intended. He used human engineering principles. If something didn't fit perfectly, he made it fit. If a connection wasn't strong enough, he reinforced it with spare materials. Theory. Aliens watching began to murmur among themselves. This wasn't how previous species had approached the problem. He's ignoring half the safety protocols, one alien observer said. Those modifications shouldn't work, said another. But they did work. Ryan's human approach of make it work first, make it perfect later, was something the aliens had never seen. Their own species were too cautious, too focused on understanding everything before attempting anything. After 3 hours, Ryan stood back. Try it now. The quantum generator hummed to life, working better than it had when they first brought it in. The room fell silent. Veltar looked shocked. Impossible. You completed the task in half the expected time. Ryan's good at his job, Jake said simply. The second trial took place the next day. This time they were brought to a room that looked like a courtroom. Representatives from several alien species sat around a large table, all arguing loudly. This trial tests cultural sophistication, Veltar explained. You must mediate a dispute between these species and find a solution that satisfies everyone. Helen stepped forward. What's the disagreement about? A massive alien that looked like a walking tank spoke first. The Corvani have expanded into our territory. This is an act of war. A graceful, floating creature responded. We only seek resources that you do not use. Your people waste what could feed thousands of ours. A third species looking like metallic insects clicked and buzzed angrily. Their translator said, both species ignore the established protocols for territorial expansion. Helen listened to each group, but she did something the aliens hadn't expected. Instead of focusing on their demands, she asked about their needs. Why do the Corvani need these resources? She asked the floating creature. Our population is growing. Our old worlds can no longer support us. And why is this territory important to you? She asked the tank-like alien. It belonged to our ancestors. To give it up would dishonor their memory. What do the protocols say about population growth? She asked the insect-like beings. The protocols were written before such rapid expansion was possible. Helen thought for a moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She laughed. I'm sorry, she said. But you're all arguing about the wrong thing. You're fighting over land when what you really need is cooperation. She turned to the floating creature. You need space for your growing population. You, she said to the tank-like alien, want to honor your ancestors. And you, she said to the insects, want to follow proper procedures. What if the Corvani helped develop the territory instead of just taking it? They could build new colonies that honor the ancestors of the warrior species while creating space for their own people. And the whole thing could be done following new protocols that account for modern population growth. The room went quiet. Each species looked at the others with new understanding. This could work, the tank-like alien admitted. Our engineers could help with the construction, the floating creature said. We could draft new protocols based on this model. The insects agreed. Helen had done more than solve their immediate problem. She had shown them a new way to think about cooperation. The third day, Jake was told to come alone. Veltar led him to a small room with a single chair and a helmet covered in strange wires. The final trial tests leadership and strategic thinking, Veltar said. You will command a fleet in a simulation against an enemy that has defeated every previous candidate. Jake put on the helmet and suddenly found himself on the bridge of a starship. Around him were displays showing dozens of ships under his command. In the distance was an enemy fleet twice the size of his own. Your mission is to defeat the enemy while protecting the civilian transports in this system, a voice explained. Jake studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were fast and seemed to learn from every move he made. When he tried a flanking maneuver, they adapted. When he concentrated his firepower, they spread out. But Jake noticed something else. The enemy was very good at military tactics, but they only thought like soldiers. They didn't account for human stubbornness. Jake ordered his fleet to do something that looked completely insane. He sent his best ships directly at the enemy's strongest position, not to win, but to buy time for the civilian transports to escape. The enemy adapted to this obviously foolish strategy and prepared to destroy Jake's ships. But Jake had counted on this. While the enemy focused on his mistake, he used his remaining ships to rescue every civilian in the system. When the enemy realized what had happened, they found themselves chasing scattered ships that were no longer trying to fight them, but were instead focused entirely on saving lives. The simulation ended with Jake's fleet mostly destroyed, but every civilian saved. According to military logic, he had lost. Interesting, Veltar said when Jake removed the helmet. You failed to defeat the enemy, but you succeeded in your mission. Previous species focused only on military victory. That night, Jake met with his crew in Lisa's quarters, away from the viewing windows. Something's wrong here, Lisa said quietly. I've been studying their databases. These entertainment species aren't failures, they're prisoners. What do you mean? Helen asked. Look at their technology levels when they arrived versus now. They haven't advanced at all. The consortium keeps them exactly where they were when they first got here. Sam leaned forward. You think this whole trial system is fake? I think, Jake said slowly, that we're about to find out. Jake stood before the assembled consortium leaders waiting to hear the results of humanity's trials. His crew stood beside him, all of them trying to look calm. Around them, aliens filled the viewing galleries like spectators at a sports event. Veltar stepped forward, but he didn't look happy. In fact, he looked worried. In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, Veltar began, no species has ever passed all 3 trials. Most fail the first. A few have passed 2, but never all 3. The crowd murmured with excitement. Jake could see aliens placing bets on what would happen next. Humanity, Veltar continued, has achieved something unprecedented. You have passed all 3 trials. The murmuring stopped. The silence was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. However, Veltar said, and Jake's stomach dropped. Passing the trials was never the real test. The crystal being stepped forward. The trials exist to identify species that might pose a threat to galactic stability, species that think too differently, species that might disturb the peace we have maintained for millennia. Jake felt cold. What are you saying? We are saying, said the energy being, that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed into galactic society as equals. But we passed your tests, Ryan protested. Yes, and that is exactly the problem, Veltar said. You passed them by ignoring our methods, our traditions, our way of thinking. You solved problems in ways we never considered. This makes you unpredictable. Helen stepped forward. So what happens now? You have 2 choices, Veltar said. You can join our society as entertainment like the other species in the exhibits. You will be well cared for, and your unique culture will be preserved for study. And the other choice? Jake asked, though he already knew he wouldn't like the answer. You return to your system and never leave it again. If any human ship is detected beyond your solar system, it will be destroyed. Sam's hand moved toward his weapon, but Jake caught his arm. Violence wouldn't help them here. There is a third option, the crystal being said. You could join us as junior partners, help us maintain the peace, keep other species from becoming threats. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa's face showed disgust. Helen looked sick. Ryan appeared angry. Sam looked ready to fight his way out. "You want us to become like you," Jake said, "to help you keep other species locked up. Think of it as maintaining galactic stability," Veltar said, "preventing war and chaos." "By stopping anyone from growing or changing," Lisa said. "Growth is dangerous," the energy being replied. "Change leads to conflict. We have eliminated war by eliminating the causes of war." Jake looked around at the viewing galleries at all the aliens watching them like animals. Suddenly he understood. "You're afraid," he said. "Excuse me," Veltar said. "You're terrified. All of you. You've built this perfect, stable society, and you're so scared of losing it that you've stopped living." The crowd began to react, some with anger, some with what looked like shame. "Those aren't entertainment exhibits," Jake continued. "They're warnings. You show them to each other to remind yourselves what happens to species that don't conform." "You don't understand," Veltar said. "Before the consortium, there were wars that destroyed entire systems. Billions died. And now billions live in cages," Helen said. "You've traded war for prison." "Safe prison," the crystal being insisted. "There's no such thing," Jake said. "Safety without freedom isn't life. It's just slow death." Ryan stepped forward. "What happened to you people? You have incredible technology, amazing minds, but you use it all to stay exactly the same." "We evolved beyond the need for change," the energy being said. "No," Lisa said. "You evolved beyond the courage for change. There's a difference." The silence stretched out. Jake could see some of the aliens in the galleries looking uncomfortable. A few of them looked ashamed. "You will choose," Veltar said finally. "Prison, exile, or partnership in our system." "No," Jake said. "What?" "No, we don't accept any of those choices. You must choose one." "Why?" "Because you say so? Because that's how you've always done things?" Jake shook his head. "You've given us 3 bad options and told us we have to pick one, but there's always a 4th option." "Which is?" Veltar asked. "We change the rules." Jake turned to address the crowd in the galleries. "How many of you remember what it was like before the consortium? How many of you remember when your people explored new worlds, created new things, took risks?" Several aliens in the crowd shifted, uncomfortably. "How many of you have children who ask questions you can't answer because the questions haven't been approved by the consortium?" More movement in the crowd. Jake could see he was hitting something important. "How many of you have wondered what might be possible if you weren't so afraid of making mistakes?" "Enough," Veltar said. "Guards, escort the humans to—" "Wait!" a voice called from the gallery. A young alien that looked like Veltar but with brighter skin stood up. "I want to hear what they have to say." "Sit down, Kelvar," Veltar ordered. "No, Father. I'm tired of sitting down. I'm tired of being safe and bored and exactly the same as everyone else." Other young aliens began standing up. Then some older ones. "Not many, but enough to notice, you see?" Jake said. "Even in your perfect system, people still want something more." "This is chaos," the crystal being said. "No," Helen replied. "This is hope." Veltar looked around at the growing number of aliens who were standing, who were questioning. His face showed something Jake hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. "What do you propose?" Veltar asked quietly. "An end to the exhibits," Jake said. "Freedom for the species you've imprisoned. A chance for everyone to grow again. And if they make mistakes, if they cause problems, then they'll learn from them and do better next time. That's what living things do." "The consortium will never agree to this," the energy being said. "Then maybe it's time for something better than the consortium," Lisa said. The crowd was buzzing now, aliens talking to each other in dozens of languages. Some were angry, but many looked excited for the first time in years. "You're asking us to risk everything we've built," Veltar said. "No," Jake replied. "We're asking you to risk everything you've been hiding from." The crystal being turned to Veltar. "This is madness. Order the humans destroyed before they spread this chaos further." But Veltar was looking at his son, who was still standing with the other young aliens who wanted something more than safety. "Father," Kelvar said, "what if they're right?" The great assembly hall fell into chaos. Aliens argued in languages Jake couldn't understand, but the emotion was clear. Some were angry, others excited, many confused. The perfect order of the consortium was cracking. Veltar raised his hand for silence. Slowly, the noise died down. "Guards, clear the galleries," he ordered. "This discussion is for consortium members only." As the crowd filed out, Jake noticed that many of the younger aliens looked back with hope in their eyes. Others looked afraid. Change was scary even when it was needed. When only the humans and consortium leaders remained, Veltar sat down heavily in his chair. He looked older than he had an hour ago. "You want the truth?" he asked. "The real truth?" "We've been asking for it since we got here," Jake said. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak. 12,000 years ago, the galaxy was very different. Thousands of species explored space, traded with each other, shared knowledge. It was exciting and chaotic and wonderful. The crystal being made a sound like breaking glass, and it was destroying everything. There were conflicts, Veltar continued. Wars over resources, over territory, over ideas. Some species tried to conquer others. Some wanted to spread their religion or their government to everyone else. "So you created the consortium to keep the peace," Helen said. "At first, yes, we were the 12 species that were tired of war. We created rules for peaceful contact between species, trade agreements, dispute resolution." "That sounds reasonable," Ryan said. "It was at first, but peace is fragile. Every time a new species joined the galactic community, there was a chance for new conflicts, new ideas that might disrupt what we had built." Lisa was scanning the room with her device. "Captain, I'm detecting massive computer systems throughout this station, more than would be needed just for basic operations." "What kind of systems?" Jake asked. "Control systems, monitoring, tracking." Lisa's face went pale. "Captain, they're not just watching the exhibit species. They're watching everything. Every planet, every ship, every communication. The energy being flickered brighter. Order requires information." "You're spying on the entire galaxy," Sam said. "We are maintaining stability," the crystal being replied. Veltar looked ashamed. "It started small, just monitoring species that might cause problems. But every species causes problems eventually. Everyone has new ideas, new ways of doing things." "So you decided to stop them before they could try," Jake said. "The trials were created as an early warning system," Veltar admitted. "Any species advanced enough to build starships was brought here for evaluation." "And if they passed the trials?" Helen asked. "No one was supposed to pass all 3 trials," the crystal being said. "They were designed to be impossible." "The first trial tests innovation," Veltar explained. "But the correct solution requires following our exact methods. Any species that improvises or thinks differently fails." "The second trial tests diplomacy," the energy being added. "But the correct solution requires accepting that some conflicts cannot be resolved, only managed by authority. And the third trial tests leadership by requiring you to sacrifice civilians for military victory," the crystal being finished. Jake felt sick. "You designed them to test for the very qualities that make a species dangerous to your control. Any species that shows true innovation, creative problem-solving, or willingness to risk everything for their principles is a threat to galactic stability," Veltar said. "So you lock them up," Lisa said. "We preserve them," the energy being corrected. "Their cultures are maintained exactly as they were when they arrived. Future generations can study them and learn from them. Like museum pieces," Ryan said angrily. "Living museums," the crystal being said, as if that made it better. Helen was shaking her head. "How many species have you done this to?" 437, Veltar said quietly. The number hit Jake like a physical blow. Nearly 500 species locked up because they were too creative, too independent, too alive. What about your own people? Sam asked. What happened to the 12 species that started the consortium? The silence that followed was the loudest thing Jake had ever heard. We evolved, the crystal being said finally. Into what? Jake asked, though he was starting to understand. Perfection, the energy being replied. No conflicts, no disagreements, no chaos. No growth, Lisa whispered. Growth is dangerous, Veltar said, but he didn't sound convinced anymore. When was the last time your people created something new? Helen asked. When was the last time they explored a new world or had a new idea? We have everything we need, the crystal being said. When was the last time a child of your species asked a question you couldn't answer? Jake pressed. Veltar flinched. Children ask inappropriate questions sometimes. Like what? Like why we can't visit the worlds we see in the exhibits. Like why we don't explore new places. Like why everything always has to be the same. And what do you tell them? We tell them that safety requires routine. That change leads to chaos. And do they believe you? Veltar looked toward the door where his son had left. The young ones. They've been asking more questions lately. Difficult questions. Because they know you're lying, Jake said. Not on purpose maybe, but you are. You've convinced yourselves that a life without risk is perfect, but your own children know better. If we allow change, there will be conflicts, the energy being insisted. Yes, Helen agreed. There will be. People will disagree. They'll make mistakes. Some of them will be big mistakes. Then you admit we are right, the crystal being said. No, Jake said. You're half right. Change is dangerous. But do you know what's more dangerous than change? What? Refusing to change when change is needed. Holding on so tight to what you have that you forget why you wanted it in the first place. The peace we have maintained isn't peace, Sam interrupted. It's just a very quiet kind of war. A war against anyone who wants to live instead of just exist. Veltar stood up slowly. What are you asking us to do? Free the exhibits, Jake said. All of them. Let them return to their homes or choose new ones. And then? Then let everyone choose their own path. Some will make mistakes. Some will fail. But some will succeed in ways you never imagined. And the consortium? Jake looked at his crew, then back at Veltar. That's up to you. You can keep trying to control everything and everyone, or you can remember what it felt like to discover something new. The crystal being made a sound like shattering. This is madness. The chaos will destroy everything. Maybe, Jake said, or maybe it will create something better. You're asking us to gamble our entire civilization, the energy being said. No, Lisa said quietly. You already gambled it. You bet that safety was more important than life. We're asking you to consider that you might have been wrong. Veltar looked around the room at his fellow consortium leaders, then at the humans, who had disrupted his perfect sterile world. And if we refuse? He asked. Jake smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Veltar very nervous. Then we'll have to show the galaxy that there's another way. Jake watched as the consortium leaders argued among themselves in their strange languages. Some sounded angry, others afraid. All of them sounded confused. For the first time in thousands of years, they didn't know what would happen next. What? Did you mean about showing the galaxy another way? Veltar asked finally. Jake looked at his crew. Ryan nodded. Lisa smiled. Helen looked determined. Sam cracked his knuckles. We've been busy during our stay here, Jake said. What do you mean? The crystal being demanded. Ryan stepped forward. While you were testing us, we were studying you. Your technology, your systems, your security. He held up a small device. Did you know your station's main computer has a backdoor that hasn't been updated in 3,000 years? Impossible. The energy being flickered. Our systems are perfect. Perfect and unchanged, Lisa said. Ryan found the back door in about 6 hours. Any first-year engineering student from Earth could have done it. What are you saying? Veltar asked, though he was starting to look worried. We're saying that while you've been keeping everyone else from growing, you've forgotten how to grow yourselves, Helen said. Your security is outdated. Your systems are brittle. Your whole civilization is one good push away from falling apart. Are you threatening us? The crystal being asked. No, Jake said. We're offering to help. Help with what? Sam spoke for the first time in hours. We've been talking to the people in the exhibits, quietly, carefully. They're not as helpless as you think. Veltar went very still. What have you done? We told them the truth, Helen said, about the trials, about the real purpose of this place, about the choice they were never given. That is forbidden, the energy being said. By whose authority? Jake asked. You've kept them prisoner for centuries. I think they have a right to know why. You don't understand, Veltar said desperately. If they all try to leave at once, there will be chaos, fighting. Some of them hate each other. Some of them do, Lisa agreed. But do you know what else we found? Most of them just want to go home. They want to see their families again, or what's left of them. The ones whose families are gone want to start new ones, Ryan added. On worlds they choose themselves. A few want to explore, Sam said, see what's changed in the galaxy while they've been locked up. And some, Helen said quietly, want to forgive you. That last statement hit the consortium leaders like a physical blow. Forgive us? Veltar whispered. There's a species called the Mendari in Exhibit Hall 7, Helen said. They've been here for 800 years. When I told their elder about the trials, about why they were really brought here, do you know what he said? Veltar shook his head. He said he understood. He said fear makes people do terrible things, and that fear had been ruling the galaxy for too long. He also said, Jake added, that it was time for that to change. The crystal being made a sound like wind through broken glass. This is impossible. If we release them, they will seek revenge. Some might, Sam admitted, but most just want to live their lives. And the ones who do want revenge, the energy being asked, we'll have to deal with the ones who don't, Jake said. That's how free societies work. People make choices, including the choice to stop other people from making bad choices. You're describing war, Veltar said. No, we're describing life, Lisa replied. Messy, complicated, sometimes painful life. Jake walked to the window that looked out over the exhibit halls. How many of your own people know the truth about this place? The leadership, of course, senior administrators, security personnel. What about everyone else? What do they think those exhibits are? Veltar was quiet for a long moment. They think they're educational displays, examples of interesting cultures from across the galaxy. They don't know these are prisons. We call them preservation centers. Helen laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You've been lying to your own people for so long you almost believe it yourselves. What happens when they find out? Sam asked. The silence stretched out. Finally, Veltar spoke. There will be questions, protests. Some will demand the exhibits be closed. Especially the young ones, Jake said, like your son. Kelvar is idealistic. He doesn't understand the complexities. He understands that keeping people in cages is wrong, Jake interrupted. Even comfortable cages. So what do you propose? The crystal being asked. Simply open all the exhibits and hope for the best? No, Ryan said. We propose something more organized than that. He activated a holographic display that showed the station's layout. We spent the last week designing a transition plan. Species that want to return to their home worlds get transportation. Species whose home worlds are gone get help finding new ones. Species that want to stay together can form new communities, Lisa added. Species that want to join existing civilizations can do that too. And species that want to explore can be given ships and supplies, Helen said. You've thought of everything, Veltar said. We've thought of the important things, Jake corrected. The details will have to be worked out as we go, that's the point. And if we refuse to cooperate? The energy being asked. Sam smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then we implement the plan without you. That sounds like a threat, the crystal being said. It's a promise, Jake said. We didn't come here to conquer anyone or rule anyone. We came here to explore. But we're not leaving without fixing what we found. You cannot fight the entire consortium fleet, Veltar protested. We don't have to, Lisa said. She activated her scanner and showed the readings to the consortium leaders. Most of your fleet is centuries old, perfectly maintained, but never upgraded. Your newest ship designs are 3,000 years old, Ryan added. You've been so focused on keeping everything stable that you forgot how to innovate. Meanwhile, Sam said, every species in those exhibits has been thinking about how to get out for centuries. They've had nothing to do but plan and dream and hope. You really think they would fight for you? Veltar asked. Not for us, Helen said. For themselves, for their children, for the chance to live free. Jake turned back to the consortium leaders. This is happening, with or without your cooperation. The only question is whether it happens peacefully or not. And if we cooperate? Veltar asked. Then you get to be part of building something new instead of just watching your old system fall apart. What kind of something new? Jake looked out at the stars beyond the station's windows. A galaxy where people are free to succeed or fail, on their own terms. Where species can choose their own paths. Where the young can ask questions without being told the answers are dangerous. Where your son doesn't have to spend his life maintaining a system he doesn't believe in. Helen added softly. Veltar was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. The other consortium species will resist. This will mean the end of everything we've built. Yes, Jake said. It will. And then you can build something better. How can you be so certain? Jake smiled. Because that's what living things do. They grow. They change. They try new things. Sometimes they fail, but they keep trying. And if this new galaxy you're proposing becomes as chaotic and violent as the old one, then we'll figure out a better way to handle the chaos and violence. That's what people do when they're free to think. Veltar looked at his fellow consortium, leaders, the crystal being looked uncertain, the energy being flickered nervously. I need to speak with my son, Veltar said finally. That's a good start, Jake said. 3 days later, Jake stood on the bridge of the horizon watching as ships left Nexus Prime in all directions. Some headed for homeworlds they hadn't seen in centuries. Others flew toward unexplored regions of space. A few stayed behind to help with the transition. Not all the consortium species had agreed to the changes. 2 had taken their fleets and retreated to distant systems, declaring the others traitors. But most had chosen to try something new. Veltar's son Kelvar had been appointed as the first administrator of the new Galactic Cooperation Council. His first act had been to dismantle the exhibit halls and turn them into meeting spaces where species could share ideas freely. Captain, Lisa called from her station, we're receiving a message from Earth. Put it through. The voice of Admiral Carter filled the bridge. Horizon, what's your status? Mission accomplished, Admiral, Jake said. We've made contact with galactic civilization. And? Jake looked at his crew, then out at the stars where hundreds of species were beginning new chapters of their lives. I think they're going to fit in just fine, sir. As the horizon turned toward home, Jake began composing his report. He had a lot to tell Earth about what they'd found in the galaxy, but the most important thing was simple. They weren't alone. And they never had to be afraid of being too human. In fact, being human might be exactly what the galaxy needed.